Okay, the first thing we're going to do is just sort of go over the course content and show you the Canvas website that we'll be using with this course. For today, I'll make some notes about the online course when it gets offered, so those of you who will be on the online course in the future, you'll know where to find that content as well. But most of the content is the same. So the course website is on Canvas, and this is what's called the home page, and it's got just a little introduction here, and it's got some tabs on this side. Have you both used Canvas? Yeah, probably. What you're going to find is on the home page I have a Word document with the file on it, with the syllabus on it, and I also have a link to the course syllabus tab, which has the course schedule on it. So let's quickly look just at the course syllabus so I can give you an overview of the course.
Is this activated on Canvas? Because I checked yesterday. And
Yes.
It wasn't. Okay.
And it was activated this afternoon, or this morning.
Perfect.
All of the details of the course are indicated at the top. My name and office hours, how to reach me by email, and where my office is on campus. And then the first section is the purpose and goals of the course. So the purpose is to provide you with insights into the functioning of families as systems and the dynamics of interactions that take place in those family systems. So like if you've had one of my other family courses, either Family and Society or Global Families, we didn't really talk about the family as a system as much as we talked about the family as an institution. And I'll make that distinction when I talk about the first lecture later on. But this is the family as a system. So we're looking at families in one place. Primarily, most of the research comes from the United States, although the kinds of models we're going to learn about can be used to analyze families anywhere, because they don't have specifics tied to a particular cultural group. And so we're going to look at families as systems. In the first third, we'll explore how families can be conceptualized and analyzed as living, self-regulating systems. So families, we're going to look at families as having a life of their own. Right? You're all in families, you know what families are like. Sometimes you say, well, why does my family do that? It just kind of goes that way, right? Well, because it's a living system. It has a certain vitality to it. It has a certain direction to it. It develops patterns which become regulating of everybody's behavior in the system. And so it kind of moves forward. It always tries to keep itself alive. It always tries to survive. And to survive, it has to do certain things to make sure that it can do so, that it can adapt to its environments, and that it can achieve its goals. And so we consider them not just living, but self-regulating. Families are constantly monitoring themselves. Members monitor each other. Oftentimes there's an executive subsystem that monitors the rest of the family. You usually see that as the parents, etc., right? And so that's what we're going to talk about. How do we think about a family as a system? What does that mean? What are the certain elements and dimensions of a family as a system? In the second third, we'll explore ways that families cope and adapt to stressor events in their environments. So once we learn about the family as a system, and we'll have some models that people have come up with which define how families attain goals and adapt. And then we'll move on and we'll talk about, well, the family doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes things happen that can disrupt the family. A child might be born with a disability. A flood might happen, or an earthquake, right? Or a landslide in Oso, for example. So how do families, when they encounter those kinds of things, how do they adapt? What causes some of them to survive and even get better as systems, and what causes some of them to fall apart or have trouble and difficulties? And so the middle part, we'll talk about what's called the family stress perspective and look at family stress and adaptation. And then in the final third, we'll explore the ecological context of families and how that affects the functioning and adaptation strategies, and look at the impacts of specific internal and external stressors on family functioning. So in the third part, we take what's called the ecological perspective. And we say, well, we've analyzed the family as a system, how it operates under normal conditions, how it deals with stressors when it encounters them. And now, we don't think that all families operate under the same set of parameters, that sometimes families, say in poverty, can't operate the same as a family that is in middle class, right? And so different kinds of environments make certain kinds of family outcomes possible or less possible, and therefore dictate that families have to reorganize themselves in different ways. And that helps us understand why families are different. And so we'll look at the ecological perspective, because that focuses attention on those dynamics, how the ecological context impacts families and the ways they're structured and how they function. Then part of this will end up with talking about families under particular kinds of stressor events. Now look at the research. Actually, your paper that you're going to do a library research paper, and you're going to analyze some of the research on a particular kind of stressor event, and you get to choose which ones you want. And that paper will be due the beginning of the last week of classes, and the last week of classes I will actually then lecture on some specific kinds of internal and external stressor events and how families are affected and how they adapt. So we'll look at things like, some of the possibilities are things like families of police officers. You would think that they would be different, wouldn't you? Because police work is stressful in particular ways. It's demanding on the police officer, has to manage his or her life in a particular way in order to survive at work, literally survive at work. What are the implications of that for the family life of that officer? Or families of military personnel, right? Usually impacted by periods of deployment and reunification, for example. Violent occupations in which people get shot and killed, right, or maimed. So these kinds of things put certain pressures on families that are unique. And so we want to look at some of those. We'll look at a little bit about how a disabled child, having a disabled child impacts family dynamics, or what are the demands of that child and how that puts pressure on the family system and results in certain particular kinds of strategies being employed in the family organization that makes those families different. We can look at adult illness. So what happens when an adult of the family, one of the parents specifically, say has a heart attack or comes down with cancer. How does the family adjust to that kind of situation? And then we will also look at things like the impacts of historical events such as natural disasters, terrorism, wars, those kinds of things impact families as well. So in the last third of the course, I'll pick a couple of these, or three of these things to focus in on, and I will lecture on those. And you're going to actually do a paper on one of those. So you'll be able to reflect on it. So the ones I choose are probably going to be based on the papers that you guys write. Okay? So you'll all have done some of the readings. All right. By the end of the course, you should be able to identify the components of a family system and the methods of their assessment, classify families using different systems models. We'll learn 3 different system models. Identify points of similarity and difference among different family systems models. Evaluate the validity of family systems models based on empirical research. Identify the components of family systems that make them more or less resilient to stress or to stressors. Understand and apply principles and concepts of the ecological perspective, and know some current research on how different types of stressors impact marital and family interaction. So that's the focus of our course. Okay? So hopefully you'll enjoy it and you'll find it interesting. There's a lot of theory, and a lot of it's abstract because it's easy for us to talk about a family like what's a family? Two parents and children or something like that. It's a little bit more complex and a little bit more abstract when we want to think of, well, how well defined are the parents as a subsystem within that unit? And so we're talking about things you can't really touch. You can only understand by watching the ways in which the members interact with each other. And that then creates these patterns. And those are the patterns that we want to talk about. The course format and organization is a mixture of lectures, and I'll do lectures in here, and then if you're in the online course, you'll have access to these lectures, and those will be posted. There'll be 2 films that we'll watch. One called Crooklyn, which is by Spike Lee. It's about a family in Brooklyn, New York, a black family, and the kinds of environments that they're dealing with, and it's a nice big family. It's got lots of dynamics in it that we can then use to apply the models that we're going to be learning about and try to diagnose and figure out what's happening in this family. The other one is called Ordinary People, which was an older movie, and that one is about a family that's undergoing a tremendous stressor. The oldest son has died in a drowning accident, and so they're trying to deal with all the implications of that. So that would be a good one for thinking about the family stress model and what are the things that make these families, make it difficult for these families to adapt, and what makes it successful, not successful in adapting. In-class discussions and independent library research paper, you're expected to complete assigned readings prior to the time scheduled and make a contribution to discussion. So the readings are listed in the syllabus, and they're all available on Canvas. So there's no required text for this course. You can get all of it off of Canvas. I see big smiles. I know. Basically, because it's kind of a unique course, these courses aren't offered in large numbers around the country. It's really for people in schools where they have a really well-defined family, what's called family science department. And those often lead into family therapy or family counseling kinds of programs at the graduate level. So you're going to get a kind of an interesting perspective here. So there's no real big textbook that I can use. Is it, you know, my only choice is a graduate level tome, which would cost $300, or taking a chapter here and there. And I actually have chosen some good ones, so I think you'll enjoy them. They're not hard to read, but they're not textbook either. So, course requirements. Your grade will be based on 3 online exams covering lecture, reading material, and any other in-class presentations, 3 reading response assignments, 2 family analysis papers based on viewing of movies, and a final library research project. Sounds like a lot, but it's not really. I think you're going to find like the analysis papers are they should be kind of fun to do. It's not like you have to go research a whole lot of stuff. You basically take what you learned and try to apply it to what you saw in the movies. And so you generate a paper pretty quickly with it because they're very descriptive. All exams will be a mixture of multiple choice, true, false, and short essays based on readings and class lectures and the presentations. Study guide will be posted the week before and can be found under the syllabus calendar entry titled Begin Exam Prep. So when we get to the Canvas website, I'll show you how to get the study guides. Each exam is worth 40 points and will cover material since the previous exam. So the final is not cumulative. Total 120 out of 300 points come from the 3 exams. Okay. Now, have you had online exams before? Have you? You haven't, and you have?
I have. Yeah.
Okay, so there'll be a multiple choice part, and then there'll be probably an essay part. And I like to, sometimes I give 2 chances, and I might do that, or I might just make it 1 and then make adjustments to the score. Depends, we'll see how it goes, because I'm not going to have as many questions developed as I'm going to need for the online class. So there'll be a limited number of questions because there's only a limited number of students. So usually I have to make a question bank for every topic, and so that it randomly pulls questions, and I'm probably not going to be able to do that as easily or as quickly. It's going to take a while. So since there's so few students, I'll just, for this term, probably have 1 question per thing, okay? And then there'll be some essays, short essays. Okay. 3 reading response assignments involving 3 to 4 page summary of one of the readings assigned for the class session. These assignments type, double space, 1-inch margins, 12-point font. So just, you know, in your Word, use Word. And then you're expected to bring summary with you and be prepared to discuss the readings you summarize in each class. Each of the assignments is due before noontime on the date listed and is worth 10 points for a total of 30. So these are little assignments that just get you to read some things that I want to be able to talk about in class and get you involved a little bit instead of just sitting there and listening to lectures. Okay. You'll submit these online, and I'll show you how to do 2 family analysis papers involving the application of family systems knowledge to a case study of the families depicted in 2 movies, Crooklyn and Ordinary People. These essays, again, typed, double-spaced, etc. I'm figuring about 8 to 12 pages is what it's going to take to finish it off, because you're going to be talking about this aspect of the system, this aspect of the system, etc. So by the time you're done describing what happened in the movie that shows this dynamic or this aspect of family system dynamics, you're going to be 8 to 12 pages probably. Okay. They will be worth 50 points each, so this is a pretty easy 100 out of 300 points to get. Just have to do a pretty thorough job. There's not always a right or wrong answer. There's a more thorough and a less thorough approach, and that's really going to be the foundation for how they get graded. Okay? So if you do a really thorough job and you covered all the concepts and you make a good effort explaining how something that you saw in the movie shows this dynamic, then you're going to get the points. Okay? And then we will, when you come to class, the day it's due, our class is going to be a discussion of what happened in the movie. And we'll talk about every single aspect of the film. It'll be a whole 2-hour discussion. Okay? Then your library research project involves an investigation into family function in the face of one of 8 possible stressor events. And you get to choose child with mental illness or disability, child physical illness, disability, adult mental illness, disability, adult physical illness, disability, stressful work environments, military families, stressful work environments, police families, economic stressors, particularly unemployment or house foreclosures, how that affects family dynamics, or natural disasters such as floods, hurricanes, droughts, earthquakes, etc. So there's a whole literature. I believe there's enough studies in each of these areas to constitute enough for writing a paper. Some of the, like natural disasters, you might have to move, some are on floods, some on hurricanes, some on earthquakes. I used to have it such that it was family and police families, military and police families, but I actually think there's enough just for police families and there's enough just for military families, and they're different enough that I've made them separate topics. Okay? If there's something else you want to do that you think would be interesting, I'm willing to also consider it. And just let me know and I'll try to see what's out there before send you in that direction. Because I want you to come out with a paper that's a good paper, so I want to make sure there's something there. Okay. To help you prepare for the paper, the focus of the project, I call it a project rather than a paper because I want you to think of yourselves as advisors. So you're either helping out FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency that helps people in hurricanes and floods and et cetera. So, the director of FEMA wants to know, how can I better serve the families that find themselves being subjected to a flood or a hurricane? So that's how, if you were to take natural disasters, that would be your focus. Okay? If your focus is on police families, imagine you're consulting with the chief of police in Seattle. What would you write to them? Write a report. Here's what I found out about what's unique about police work that is challenging for families. How families are impacted by these things. What do we know from the research on police families? And given that I'm now, by this time, an expert in family systems and family stress analysis, here's what I would suggest you do to better serve those families. Okay? Might be something to do with the work environment, or it might be something to do to provide counseling in a particular area that you're specific about, or it might be a policy that you enact that maybe changes the ways in which police officers relate to each other, or manage their work environments such that it doesn't impact the families the way it's been shown to in a negative way. So you get to kind of be an advisor. To help you prepare, 3 preliminary assignments involve selecting a topic, doing a search of literature, and the first involves just picking a topic. So the first assignment, you'll get 2 points just for coming up with 2 things that you want to do research. As long as you do it on time. The second is a list of references with abstracts for 10 articles and or books that you think you'd be useful in your paper. And I want a good number of them to actually be studies. Because it's not very good to just talk about, well, theoretically, this is what. No, you want to be able to say, no, we have research that shows this. Okay? So you need to have some good, solid research. It needs to be in peer-reviewed journal articles, professional research. Okay? Not something from Time Magazine. And then the third will be a little bit later, and once you get feedback from me, from the second assignment, I'll look at what you came up with for your articles, and I'll say, okay, this one looks really good, or you need a few more, and I'll try to help you find better articles if you need them. And then the third preliminary assignment is, okay, here's the ones I'm going to use, and here's how I see my paper developing. I'm going to use these articles to discuss this, I'm going to use those articles to discuss this. And then the final is to produce the paper. So you go get those articles, read them, write up your analysis, and submit it. Okay. So the other two preliminaries are 4 points each. So in total there'll be 10 points from these preliminary assignments. That says 20, it should say 10. And then the final paper is 7 to 12 pages in length, typed double space, 1 inch 12-point font. You're expected to save your paper in PDF file format and submit it electronically on Canvas on the due date. It's worth 40 points. So total the paper comes out to 50, 40 for the actual paper and 10 for all the preliminary stuff, work that you do developing your references. I do it this way because this way I don't get papers in which you go off and you do all this hard work and you're going in a totally wrong direction and you're not going to have anything there that's going to allow me to give you a good grade, right? Because your grade is going to be based upon how well, some of it is based upon how well you represent and summarize that research, but a big hunk of it is also going to be how well you use course material to make sense of that research. And if you're going in the wrong direction, you're going to be lost. So this just helps you make sure that you have a good set of foundations for your paper. So 3 10-point reading responses, 2 analysis papers, preliminary research assignments, exams, 3 of them, and then the final paper. So there's 300 points total. Your final grade's a percentage, right? So standard 93 or above is an A, 90 to 93 is an A minus, etc. Okay. If anyone in the course has, please read the academic dishonesty and plagiarism. Make sure that you cite things properly when you write them. Particularly, this will be an issue in the summaries, the reading responses, and will be an issue in the final paper. Yes?
Do you want these in ASA or in...
They can be in either ASA or APA format.
Okay.
Okay? They must be in one or the other.
Okay.
Are you familiar with ASA, APA formats? One or the other? Okay, good. And I've had students in the past submit their final paper without a list of references at the end because they, well, I always gave the references. No, I want the references listed again in the final paper, but without the abstracts. In the previous 2 assignments, it'll be the paper, the reference with the abstracts for each one, so that I can read what it's about before so I can give you feedback on it. But in the final paper, once we've decided what those references are going to be, reference you actually use in the paper should be at the end in APA or ASA format. The class schedule is shown in this Word file as well. So today, course introductions and families as systems. And then tomorrow, the next time we'll talk about the systems perspective, what that means. Because there's something unique about the systems perspective that if you're, are you social majors?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in social, we tend to have a variables approach. We tend to say, well, what's the cause? X causes Y. The systems approach is a little bit more holistic. Well, it is holistic. It's a little bit more touchy-feely. It's a bit more amorphous because it doesn't see one thing affecting another. It sees a whole set of things moving together in an interactional dynamic that you miss if you try to say, well, what's the cause of X causes Y? And so we got to talk a little bit at length about that, and we'll do that at the end of the next one. And there's readings here on this side. So Broderick is the first reading. Hochschild, 1989. We're going to use this as an example when we talk about the systems perspective. And then we'll have a discussion on the next session, what's normal or functioning, and that's going to be based on a reading by Walsh. And it's basically, you know, say, oh, I grew up in a functional family or dysfunctional family? You ever debate that with your siblings or other people? Oh, no, our family's so dysfunctional. You hear that all the time, right? Oh, that's such a dysfunctional family. What does that mean? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. What's normal? What's functional? And are these terms even viable? And what are going to be the criteria that we use to define normality or functionality? And so we'll have a discussion about that. And then we'll move into the first family systems models, which are focused on goal attainment. So these family system models all talk about what makes a good family, or what makes a functional family in some sense. Some of them answer the question according to a criteria of, okay, a functional family is one that achieves its goals most efficiently. And so there's a couple of models which the primary focus is on what kinds of family organization and dynamics allows families to best achieve their goals efficiently. Other models focus on, no, it's not what makes you be able to achieve your goals, it's what makes you able to adapt when you're threatened. So these family adaptation models, their focus is, okay, there's lots of different kinds of families and they organize themselves in all kinds of unique ways. Some of them are more efficient at attaining their goals, some are less efficient. But is that bad that they're less efficient? Why should we set the criteria at efficiency? What we should be setting the criteria at is, well, regardless of how they're organized, are they able to adapt when things threaten them? And so the key is going to be what characteristics allow families to adapt, what allows them to sort of shift and jive, if you will, when they encounter obstacles along the way. And so those will be the adaptation models. Then we'll talk about family measurement. How do we measure family systems? And then we'll have a movie, Crooklyn. And at this point, this movie, I will show it in class, unless I can get it so that I can show it online. And if I can show it online, then you won't have to come to class. You can just watch it at home and do the assignment based upon it. And so these are the readings for each of these. Research assignment 2, literature search 1. So this is your first literature search assignment. That gives me time to give you feedback the following week and time for the next one. Then the next week, week 3, in the summer course here, we'll have a discussion about what you wrote, what you found in the movie, and that's when that first analysis is due. Then we have a review and makeup day, so we'll talk about more, any questions you have about these models, and if there's something that I forgot in a lecture that I wanted to elaborate more on for the purposes of the online course, then I'll take advantage of that day to do it then. Then we have the exam. Then we move on to the next segment, which will start with family culture and functioning. We'll look at how religion plays a role in families and the importance of religion. And we'll talk about some key concepts in the second, family culture and functioning, family integrity and family ritual, and how families' cultures are comprised and how culture plays a role in adaptation. Then we'll get into the family stress and coping model, and then we'll have the movie Ordinary People. We'll apply that model. We have a research assignment 3. Then we move on to our discussion of the family stress and coping model. And then we have an exam 2. Then finally, we move on. We talk about the ecological perspective. I'll do a lecture on it. And then we'll have a discussion of some of the articles you wouldn't have to review all of these. I'll assign it to different students with different sets of articles. These are actually studies of families that are really well done studies that take into effect the ways, the kind of neighborhood variables that change how families work or don't work. Like one of them looks at, does spanking a child work as a disciplinary technique? Well, it depends on the environment. The answer to that question. You can't just say, no, spanking never works. It might sometimes. Another one looks at, well, are families able to organize themselves in a way that overcomes the difficulties of a very poor environment? If you grow up in a family that lives in a neighborhood with lots of porn shops and lots of gun play on the streets and gangs and things of that nature, are you going to be able to shield your children and successfully achieve socialization goals in that context? Or does the context just make it really impossible for you to do that? And so some of these articles are about those kinds of topics. And so that we'll discuss those in this one. And then finally, we'll talk about the impacts of economic and work environments, individual disabilities and illnesses, and historical events before we get to exam. That's the whole course. It'll fly by. Right? Okay. I'm pretty flexible, let me know what your needs are. There's some things that I can't be too flexible about. In particular, these things that lead to discussions. I really need you to have done those by the due dates, okay? And like I said, I'm willing to help you as much as I can with your research process. I'm pretty good at the literature, and I can help you with searching strategies so you can get a good paper, okay? And so that's the syllabus. Any questions about that? No? All right. So this is the website. The announcements will appear here, and these you probably have them set up to go to your email or text messages or whatever. So whenever I make an announcement, I'll put it here. If I change something, I'll put the announcement there. The assignments are all here, and I'll probably reorganize these a bit, but right now they're all just all listed under assignments. I probably should organize them under reading response assignments, research assignments, and others. So I'll try to do that as well, but you can always get to them here. So here's the reading response. Assignment 1, it's due on Thursday by 12 p.m. Points 10, you're going to upload a PDF file. Do you know how to save a PDF file in Word?
You can just change it in the bottom, right?
Yeah, where is it? Save as a PDF, okay? The reason I have you do it in PDF is because I use Turnitin, which compares what you wrote to what anybody wrote anywhere in the world who's using Canvas. Any other student, any other paper writing company, any source, Wikipedia, it compares it to everything written and looks for contiguous strings of words that are the same, and it highlights where you may think about whether this is plagiarism or not. So you get a report on that when you turn it in. And if you see the percentage, if it's kind of high, you might want to go, ooh, if it's like 20% or more, you say, maybe I better go look and see where lots of times it's innocent and it's not an issue of citation issues that you need to worry about. But if it's extensive, if you're up to 50%, then you probably want to think about how you wrote it and put in some citations at least, okay? Because you're expected to do your own words. So the reading response, read the chapter by Walsh, and if you click on this, it will take you right there. And you can read it. And answer the following response prompt. What are the 4 types of normality discussed by Walsh, and how do they differ? What do you think defines a functional versus a dysfunctional family system, based upon what you're reading Walsh? Okay. And then to submit, you just say submit assignment. You don't know how to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some people might know it though. So, and then you just browse. You find the file that you saved. And then don't forget to submit the assignment. Let me see, let me just put something there. Well, it has to be a PDF file. Forgot about that. Won't let you submit it unless it's a PDF file. This assignment submission is my own original work. Attest to that. And you get turned in a check mark, submission details. Here's your download, submission details if you click there. Right now you have nothing there. I guess you don't get a Turnitin score. When you want to check on your file, let me go back here. For some of the things I'm going to give you feedback on, in particular your reference lists. And when you do your reference lists, I will give you feedback so that when you click on that file, you'll see what you did originally, but you'll also see my comments. And so you'll have that feedback directly. That's how I'll give feedback to you. Okay, so that's the assignments. Discussions, we don't have any. Grades, your grades are here. So this is where you get you'll find, I think you'll find the annotated file in here. People, don't, pages, don't, files, these things don't even use. If I can disable them, I will, because you don't need them. And there's some other materials, like in the files, I have some files maybe from an earlier time when I did the course that might not be applicable to this course. So you never have to go there to find anything. Okay? Everything that you need will be available on the calendar or on the syllabus tabs, so you don't have to worry about those things. Okay. Syllabus is here, and so you can follow the course along here, the days and dates, and there are two different kinds of things in here. One is events, and so an event is a lecture, which I'll give to you, or will be a recorded lecture if it's the online version. And intro and overview, that's just what I'm talking to you about today. So it's just telling you what we're going to talk about each day. And then there are assignments that are here as well. So you see the due dates for assignments. And so you can follow the whole course through here. If you click on any one of these, it takes you, so I click on this, it takes me to the calendar. And the calendar is for every course that you're in that has a Canvas site, right? Have you used the calendar before, maybe? So you'll see, you click on which ones you want. I think the default is all of them, but you'll see this course over in the corner. And then you'll see an entry for what you clicked on, intro and overview. That's today, Tuesday the 24th. And if you click on this one, this is the lecture. So today's lecture, here's the reading. You click on that, it'll take you to the PDF file. And you click on this and you'll get the PowerPoint file. Okay? And then for those in the online course, there'll also be a third entry here which will say the lecture recording. And that will then have a link, a YouTube link, to access the recording of the lecture so that you can watch it to follow and complete the course. Okay. So you can choose to follow along in the course either by using the syllabus tab and clicking on the items there, or you can just every day just go to the calendar. You say, okay, what have I got this week? Here are the things. Let me look at these. What do I have to print off if I'm going to use? If I'm going to, I encourage people to print the overheads and then take the notes on the overheads. I think that's a very useful technique. I usually do print them 2 per page. And then you have these little A's. These are assignments. So you can click on those when you're ready to submit them. Okay. The only assignment that you don't have to upload a PDF file for is the first one, which is submit the topics here. So if you click, if it's an assignment page, you can get to the assignment directly just by clicking on the title. Submit a list of 2 alternatives. And if you want to submit an assignment, you just type in the 2. Number 1 is the one you really want the most. Number 2 is your second choice. If you want to add a third that you say, well, I don't know, really we're thinking that this is something that's not on the list, but could I do it on this? And tell me why and what it is that you want to do it on. Give me some details and I'll consider that. Okay? And then submit your assignment here. Oh, I gotta put something in here. And again, if you did it right, it'll say turned in, right? And this brings you back to the home, to the assignments page. So, and that's the website. Any questions? I think that's everything. Let me show you again the so here, July 31st is an exam on July 9th. So on July 3rd, there's an entry exam 1 prep. Click on that. And here's the information. Here's the study guide. Okay. Right now, those aren't exactly this. I have to double check them because I reorganized the course a little bit, but that's where they'll be by that date. So you'll have the study guide about 4 or 5 days before the exam. And I never put anything on my exam unless it's on the study guide. Okay? So if it's not on the study guide, you don't have to worry about it. Unfortunately, everything I talk about is on the study guide. So. But if I happen to leave something off, no problem. All right, so there's the course in a nutshell. There might be some, I might take some advantage of either chat or conferences. If I do that, I will give you an announcement of how to do that. Probably not for the live class, but for the online class, to help me converse with you and talk about topics. We'll probably go do some of these conferences or chats. So.